Good evening, everyone. I'm Julia Tulovsky. I'm curator for Russian and Soviet Nonconformist art here at the Zimmerli Art Museum at Rutgers University. And it is my pleasure and honor to welcome you tonight to a lecture by Alexander Melamid. And Alexander Melamid hardly needs an introduction to this audience. He is an icon of Soviet Nonconformist art who then became a vital part of New York art scene. Back in 1972, together with his artistic partner Vitaly Komar, they invented and formulated the principles of Sots Art movement that combined Soviet propaganda with principles of American pop art. And then after immigration to the United States in 1978, Alexander Melamid and Vitaly Komar were represented by Feldman Gallery and had exhibitions in many museums in America and Europe. And tonight, Alexander is going to give us a kind of a manual of how to immigrate to a country of art. And before giving the floor to Alexander, I would like to remind you that after the talk, we will have a Q&A section that will be moderated by my colleague Jane Sharp and myself. So please type your questions into the special box, to the chat box. So welcome, Alexander Melamid.
Hello, guys. Yes, I'm Alexander Melamid, and I think I'm almost ready to talk about what can you remove? I have everything, and I have everything here. You know, my absinthe, sugar, and a sear stone. You know, it helped a lot of prophets to tell the truth. And I'm holding the seer stone to tell you the truth about the future. And I'm thinking whether I should start drinking right now or maybe later on. Should I get drunk right away or later on? I'm not sure. But it's interesting, this connection of alcohol or some intoxicated substances with art. You know, this early modernists, of course, they were famous. They were drinking absinthe. But then it was banned. I think it was part of this fight against modernity and by governments. So it stopped. And then after the World War II, American abstract expressionists were really heavy drinkers. They drank, of course, bourbon as a patriotic guys. And it's not an accident, you know, that a great American critic, Harold Rosenberg, called this abstract expressionism and paintings of Russian, abstract expressionism, apocalyptic wallpaper, because it was really an apocalyptic time. And now I want to share with you, if I'll find how to share it. Yes, it seems I did. Yeah, and some slides I prepared for this lecture. This is Moscow, which I left a long time ago, and Moscow was drab, you know, really poor and drab. And I moved to New York, which looked very poor, but not drab by any means. Actually, I think that it was full of graffiti, and I think graffitis saved New York, saved from oblivion for a misery, because it added color. And this is, I was very lucky because I think a month after I came to New York, I was taken to CBGB's, and it was loud, I'm telling you. I mean, it was terribly loud. And then this is a cafeteria, which was a hangout for already recognized artists, not rich yet. It was in Tribeca, a very nice hunt. But I was always trying to get, hold on, yeah. And that was really shocked me in New York, because every building in New York had this a fallout shelter sign. And every building in New York was equipped with a fallout shelter, which was some food stocked and stuff like that. That was very important. And I understood this abstract expression that the people after the World War II were really scared, panically scared. It was, I mean, because it seemed that nuclear war is imminent. And that's why, again, I'm saying this, it was called the apocalyptic wallpaper. Fortunately or unfortunately, apocalypse gone. And now abstract expressionist is just wallpaper, not apocalyptic wallpaper anymore. And to understand this time, I would recommend you, if you're interested, of course, I'm talking about the 80s New York, you have to read the books by a great American writer, Gary Indiana. Not only his earlier book, like Depraved Indifference, but his latest book, as far as I understand, it is his latest, is his autobiography. I Can Give You Anything But Love. And you will understand much better what the life was there and what is American art was there as well. And this fallout shelter talks about the fear and American life is run by fear. Fear is our fuel, and the fossil fuel at that. So everything we do, we're scared by. And especially now, it is very clear that fear reigns supreme. And what makes us to move ahead. And that's, I was always interested not only in this life of the city life, very early on, my family and me were driving up north into the forests. And I was younger then, and I saw a lot of different things in this forest, including this angel which just appeared once to me and my wife. Here is the angel. Only later on, when I moved up upstate, I understood that it's not the first time when the angel appeared in an American forest. Here we have an amazing guy, of course, Joseph Smith. I don't know how much you're familiar with the Mormons' teaching, but it is really an amazing story. So the angel came to Joseph, and he was a simple son, a farmer's son, and he led him. Oh no, he led him to the golden plate. There were something in a forest. So we're laying down this golden plates, and he was trying to understand them. And the seer stone, which I showed to you before, so it helped him to translate it from ancient Egyptian into into English. And what is really interesting, that he was the part of a bigger movement, which was called officially the Great Awakening. Yeah, it was called the Great Awakening, and there was several Great Awakening during the 19th century, and then in the 20th century. The Great Awakening was this kind of a religious hysteria. When people got into this hysterical mode of trying to understand the world, and itinerant preachers were roaming the land and preaching God or something else, something what we call now spiritual. And the second Great Awakening was exactly at the time of Joseph Smith. And so he translated this golden plates. And now we think, you know, and he started it when he was 24 or so. And then he was martyred. And then, and it's a very nice drawing of the martyrdom of Joseph Smith. And it was really very strange thing, you know, because he started when he was 24. So before his death, there was thousands and thousands of followers. And now the Mormon Church claimed that they have the 16 million followers or members of the church. And we can say it's a really amazing, because there's a lot of money there. And this is one of the temples of the Mormon Church. And this is another one. So they build and build and build. And these buildings look as ridiculous like as this temple, cathedral, I'm sorry, which is in Milan. And what is interesting, that after the World War II, the modern architects started to build these churches again. So in a way, you know, at the very beginning of modernism, so people, this modernists kind of denied a mainstream Christianity. But after the World War II, they started to build the churches, and Frank Lloyd Wright, of course, and this one is the most famous, is built by Le Corbusier. But now, you know, churches are not built. What is built really on a very extravagant and very expensive way is a museum. Believe it or not, but this is a museum building. And of course, this one. And this one, I like this one especially well, because you see, it's a very interesting that it starts with the bigger objects of art, and then it goes on and on and on. And at the end, I suppose, I've never been inside, there's a tiny, 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 tiny objects of art, because there's no space for bigger objects of art. And of course, this one is the most famous one. So, and we can say that that's what it is. It's a new religion, nothing but the religion. And it's as strange, I can tell you, as Mormonism. Who the hell can believe in that? Huh? And why do we believe in that? Why why Joseph Smith has 16 million followers now after his death? Or Van Gogh has what, hundreds of millions? A lot. But the foundation of this as shaky as it can be imagined. And here, I think this idea of modern art started in 1870. In Paris, of course. And here we see that's the destruction of the statue of Napoleon. We're familiar now with the destruction of monuments. You know this pretty well. It started in the 20th century. It started in Russia in the 1990s, and then it came to the United States. And now we have a lot of monuments destroyed. So it's a sign of a revolution. And of course, in Paris at that time, 1870, there was a great Parisian commune. And from that on, after France lost the war with the Germans, and after the revolution, a new movement has started. And this one is the art incoherent. I'm sorry, my French is even worse than my English, so I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And it was October 1888, a new show has been opened. And of course, people were intoxicated, really intoxicated. And that's what I want to do myself, you know, because they were intoxicated by absinthe. Here's the absinthe, but it's a very unusual drink. It's a white absinthe. And that's how people drank it, okay? So there's a special thing. You put a cube of sugar, and you could, aha. The smell is so good. Okay. And then you dilute it with water. Aha. You see, it becomes milky. Beautiful drink. Actually, it's very interesting that this, the alcohol consumption, of course, this drinking of abstract expression is drinking bourbon. And then after that, of course, everyone switched to marijuana or something else. And marijuana makes really bad art. Vodka or bourbon, for that matter, is much a better conduit for a great art. Okay, for you guys. I wish I can share it with you. Okay, so we got this. Back to my slides. Share. And here we are at the God painting, of course, and you see this milky substance, which I'm drinking now. And here was the interesting show of this incoherence was opened. And there was a this canvases painted in one color. This one particular, you know, orange one was called Apoplectic Cardinals Harvesting Tomatoes at the shore of the Red Sea. But there was black, yellow, green, and stuff like that. And it's interesting that I think it's the students of the School of Visual Art, they try to kind of to build, you know, this the show. And what is interesting that the collection of memorabilia of this show, the biggest collection, is in Zimmerli Museum. And I'm dreaming about really creating the show anew, because nothing left but the information about this. And the show was enormously popular. And everyone who is anyone attended the show, especially the opening, and they became really famous for some time. But of course, a real kind of, you know, it was installed in a private apartment. And but the real private apartment looked more like that than like that. And of course, people were smoking pipes. And here we are, you know, as a great artist who, who made this Mona Lisa. And it's he in 1887. And his name was, his pseudonym was Sapek. And here it is, Mona Lisa smoking the pipe. And of course, since then, a lot of famous things, images of people smoking pipe, you know. Okay, should I, okay. Okay, all right. So we know this famous pipe smoker, and we have this famous pipe smoker. But then we have this famous pipe smoker. But now we even don't talk about kind of a pipe smokers. It's about the heavenly, about gods, let's say. And this is the God. This guys who, elevated to, ascended to heaven. Here it is, Jesus himself. But this one's, at a certain point, this is a famous fresco by Rafael, and it's not citizens or citizens of the heaven. It's just the philosophers, kind of a common people, which was really, really strange at the time of Rafael. And here it is, a beautiful, amazing, brilliant man, Rafael Sancer. And here is a beautiful, amazing man, Paul Cézanne. And here how it has changed, you see, from Paul Cézanne, from this guy to this guy. Huh? It's kind of a democratic change. And from the frescoes in the Vatican and to this big painting. So in a way, change is amazing. And it all came, I think that's very important to understand the connection between Christianity and modern art. You see, here it is, the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is a white dove, and it is a white dove. And from here, this Holy Spirit, the idea of spirituality came to our language, to our understanding of the world. And what the hell is spirituality? And that spirituality was discovered by a Russian woman, Yelena Petrovna Blavatsky. So she was one of the most influential people ever in the history of mankind. When you see a young ladies walking the streets of New York with this mats behind their back for their yoga session, that was Yelena Petrovna who invented the whole thing, everything which we know about spirituality, the key word, and the rest of the world, let's say. And she had the followers, actually, and was a really amazing artist, Röhrig. And the Museum of Röhrig exists in New York. I would recommend you to talk about this, because she was an adventurer, of course, and a fraud. And that's why maybe she was so influential, because modern art based on fraud, as you probably know. And that's what her idea, because she claimed that she traveled to Tibet, and she has this masters who, some special people who guide her in the world. And that was a really an amazing story she was telling the people. And she was traveling a lot, but her major work was written at the first and major in New York, actually in a neighborhood I live now in New York. And it was called Isis Unveiled. And then her major book is, it's like a secret doctrine, yeah. What she claims that she has this kind of a masters of the ancient wisdom who lead her to her discoveries and to her teaching. It's not just her. And Röhrig was the fellow traveler, and it all came about from this total craze of the end of the century, France and all Europe, sorry, not only France, but all Europeans. It's about occult science, about the occult. So here is this a seance when people are talking to this souls or you know, of the people who are already dead. And so they could talk, and it is serious. And of course, T.S. Eliot was very much part of that. And here is the symbol of this Theosophical Society. So Theosophical Society was organized, created in New York, and she left New York and went back to Europe. And she tried to connect all the symbols of major religions at once. And then after her death, the president of the Theosophical Society, Anne Besant, published a book. It was 1901. I remember this time really clearly. And that's what it says, that it was a really interesting book. I mean, you can get it online with beautiful color illustration, which was, of course, quite rare at that time. And so it showed that some abstract form actually have a concrete meaning. You see, this one is a greed for drink. This is the intention to know. This one, sudden fright. Wow. And it seems that there was many, many more. And of course, Hilma of Klint, which became so popular now, that's her paintings based on this book. And it was done to build this, the temple. It was kind of a murals for the temple, which had never been built, but so it was supposed to be built. And now we know that the museums are exactly that temple Hilma was thinking about. Now the temples of spirituality have been built, but they just called museums. We can rename them. And of course, Kandinsky was the member of Theosophical Society. And if you ever read his book about the spirituality in art, which is the most amazing nonsense, which is still carry on, you know. It just, because spirituality means that it is nonsense, okay? Because you cannot get it by your mind. So if you speak nonsense, you're an artist. And of course, Mondrian said that everything I know about art is from Madame Blavatsky. It's even more than that. Gandhi himself said that he has only two really people who he adore and who are the basis of his teaching. It's Leo Tolstoy and Madame Blavatsky. And of course, right after this amazing stories, the World War I started. And right before that, of course, the Europeans started to build ruins. This is the temple, but of course it was not the temple. This the columns were not erected; they were just created. That was the temple as the Europeans saw it first. You know, this boulders in front, and people are familiar because every museum, every gallery had a lot of statues deformed. And then was the result, this is Otto Dix, amazing German artist, and he painted this portraits right after the the end of the World War I. And here it's interesting, there's two aesthetical things. You know, first is the ancient bust, and in front there's Picasso's sculpture. And the whole modernism is about monsters. You see, this is a Picasa monster. You can say that it's painted well or not, but it is a monster. You have to see it first. This is the monster, huh? Do you agree with me? And this one is a modern, you know, performance artist, I suppose. I don't know her name, but it's a lot of picture of her, you know, making really ugly faces. And of course, this one is a great one, and this one, and this one. That's the most beautiful, of course, the most artistic and spiritual. And that's what it is. The sleep of reason produces monsters. If we want to think and we want to be led by our passions and spirituality, that's where we end up. Here, a landscape, you know, a cityscape of New York at the time I came to New York. And that's the landscape of pure spirituality and pure passion. There's nothing but passion in this. And that's what passion and spirituality is ended up. And that's what great Karl Marx says. Art is the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of the heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. And here, the greatest art ever made by the new artist, Modernism, they call it. And you know that. The heart of the heartless world. But how can you get into believing in that? Should you think about this? Should you do something? No. That's the vision of St. Paul on his way to Damascus, from Damascus, I'm sorry. And he was struck by light, and he got blind, and he was blind for quite a long time. So that's how the faith comes onto you and how you become a believer. That happened to me too. And I understood that they preached the wrong gods, you know, because my education in Russia was all built on Cézanne. But now if you look carefully, when the light strikes me, so you can see something which is like Van Gogh. Van Gogh now is a czar. And of course, there's a St. Augustine famous saying, faith is to believe what you do not see. The reward of this faith is to see what you believe. Oh my God. He was a smart guy, you know. Unfortunately, in art, this modern art, there was no guys as smart as St. Augustine. So it's kind of it's still an unfinished business. It's still not clear. And that's the thing I made a long time ago. That's our kind of I cannot say it is God. It's rather a prophet. But here he is, praying for your soul. And that's what they said. He went through all the towns and villages, teaching the synagogues, proclaiming the good news and the kingdom, and and to treat every cure, rather, every disease and sickness. And here I am treating some diseases and sicknesses. You see, Rembrandt is very good for your upper leg. I don't know how to call it. It really helps. This one for here is for gynecological problems, and the obvious thing. And that's what I came up with, the idea of art treatment. This is the floor plan of the National Gallery in London. And what Rubens, if you have problems with liver, you go to what Rubens is. If you have Velasquez is good to rheumatism, and reproductive organs are Rafael can treat you for that. And of course, Monet is for hay fever, and Seurat for pimples, and some others, pancreas or Caravaggio, I'm sorry. So I came up with this after really a huge and important research, and you have to understand that you have to believe in science. And then here I am going on a mission. And I was not the first, of course. There's a really a lot of missionaries in this in this country. You know, I like the most this lady who is Paula White.
I hear victory, 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 victory in the corridors of heaven, in the corridors of heaven, victory, 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 victory. For angels are being released right now. Angels are being dispatched right now. Amanda, aka, ata, raka, teda, baka, sanda.
You see, that's what she is doing. And I think it's atta, bata, kata, pata. It's what we think about art and most of the writing about art. No, I think everything which is written about art is in that way. I cannot repeat her because I'm not as good in that, but I can say, what? Giacometti, eti, patti, putti, Picasa, to. Gerker, Richter, Peter, Butter, Tutor. That sounds good. And it explains a lot. And I went to this world ministry. It was quite a long time ago. I'm here, in New York, carrying the image of the prophet Van Gogh. And here I am in a village. And here I'm trying to fight because there was a lot of missionaries in this area and they built churches. But I think my prophet is better than their prophet. And here I build upstate New York, small, this Van Gogh chapel. Just anyone can come and to pray for a little at least. And here is a museum, of course. And here I am going, into the world, to see and showing, of course, children, which is really important. Children are very important. And we need to teach them to love art. Art is very, very important. And here I am. First, I thought that I'm just a genius. I was wrong. And but I followed, the instructions of our Lord Jesus Christ. I assure you, he said, unless you're converted and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. And here I am becoming a child, playing at the playground. And here we have the children, and we have the greatest child of them all, Cy Twombly, of course. Wow, here it is. And obviously, following this Jesus's advice, he became the greatest artist. And of course, another one from the Bible, it blows that wound cleans away evil. Beating may clean the innermost parts. And here are this famous performance by Chris Burden, when he was shot and wounded. And we know it, from older and ancient religions, this love for pain and Saint Sebastian, of course. And then I can claim only that I suffered once and for all, and it's a famous, at that time, famous and now forgotten, something which was called Bulldozer Show. So the group of artists, me included, we went to the field and to show our works, because they were not allowed to be shown in any institutional environment. And so the authorities put bulldozers and some heavy machinery to disperse this. And that's the works at the show which were destroyed. And here is another picture from that. So some kind, but at a certain area I understood, because I was looking for God and I found myself, and I understood that I am God. Okay, I'm your God from now on, believe me. And that's how I imagine myself, and that's how it's going to be. Maybe not right now, but it's spreading out. And that's the Torah signed by me, because I cover the whole world, but and of course, this is the two kind of immigration situations. I immigrated first, from Russia to the United States, but now I'm migrating to some other other world, And you see at spirituality, and on the right you see a first depiction of the soul. The soul looks a little bit like a bacteria or a virus. You see, it penetrates, it's kind of inside of you. It doesn't exist without you, but within you, it proliferates. And that's very important, you know. Here is my big painting, you know. Yeah, it's like really huge painting here and there. And then what I'm talking now about, because I'm your God, I want to give you instructions. So you have to understand that any resistance to the authorities, to the mob, is totally fruitless. What the artist should do is to resign. Okay? They need to go, we need to go into the other world, beyond this world. I remember this from my Russian experience when the small artists, you know, the small groups of artists were totally removed themselves from the social and political and social life of their time, you know, and that's what we have to do. We have to realize, because nothing we can do, you know, and the artists now pretend that they fight for that, It's nonsense. They don't do it, you know, nothing would help. So what will help is the life, that's what would help, just to live on their own. Welcome to the world beyond. I'm ready to take your questions. Okay.
Hi. Oh, good. Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. My name is Jane Sharp, and I'm a professor in the art history department and also a curator at the Zimmerli of the Dodge collection. And I think it is now time to, yeah, fantastic, to take questions from the audience. So we would prefer it if you would write your questions in the Q&A. We do have just some great responses from the audience in chat, but the Q&A would be best. Oh, good. We have several here because everybody can see these. So what I propose to do is just read them. And we'll see what kind of exchange we can develop. Does that suit you, Alex?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Question? Okay. So we have a question from Alexis Lerner, who writes, "What a pleasure to hear you speak about cities and absinthe and spirituality and great art. I followed your work for years and thank you for sharing your perspective with us." Her question: political graffiti reminds me so much of Sots art, especially political graffiti in a place like Russia, because of how artists use satire to subvert censorship. I'd love to ask you, why do you think people paint these political graffiti murals? What is it about street art or even Sots art that makes people want to use it to attack powerful people and ideas? Is there something about this art being out in the streets and often anonymous that makes it effective?
You know, remembering the time past, you know, again, when I came to New York, it was really simple. It was kind of, you know, anti-art, because nobody really cared about art, you know, because I mean, there were some groups of people, but people outside. So it was just myself, I mean, to show it had nothing to do with art as we understand it, you know? Because anything outside of the temple is not art, okay? What is on a wall, it can be anything. It just because we now, you know, call art everything. So children's art, you know, that art, you know, I mean, everything is art, which means nothing is, right? So the only definition of art is the thing which exists within the art institution. And my great friend and a great book reviewer, Christian Lorentzen, he was talking about literature, but it applies to visual art as well. He said that, I'm talking about now, the situation now, you know, he just said that that of all the isms of the 20th century, this realism, you know, magical realism. I can add cubism, abstract art, but all these isms. The newest ism is careerism. So, because we have to work within the big institutions, you know. It started as, you know, early Christians, you know, the monks, you know, fighting for truth, blah, 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 blah. But then the Vatican was built, the church. And then there was no place for any outsiders. So now, I mean, this graffiti art is just, it's a part of an institution. It's careerism, you know. A young black boy wants to make a splash, you know. What is the easiest way? Make a graffiti. Because we're totally prejudiced. We really see it this way. But what my end of my long talk was, we need to start anew. What exists now is a total disaster. Art as we know it now is a disaster thing. It's like, you know, it's absurd, it's nonsense. It shouldn't exist. And what we really ascribe to the right, to the people, you know, bad people, what happened now with the political correctness and stuff like that, which we all hate, obviously, that's the result of the development of visual art. I can tell you there's three major teaching of the 20th century, ideological kind of movements of the 20th century. It's communism, fascism, and modern art. Okay, these two gone, you know, the first two gone, but modern art still exists. And it's a real danger to the environment and to our spiritual environment as well. Next question, please. I cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I had it on mute. I was just going to return to the first part of the question and ask how you see Sots Art. Do you see your own activities, yours and Vitaly's activities in the 70s, as participating in this in some way, or do you separate it because this whole notion of modern art and the temple for modern art was not possible there, that there was a different structure of patronage, authority, and therefore this whole procession, you know, that you're outlining doesn't apply, or does it?
You know, it's interesting, but talking about my understanding of that, I'm not sure about how Vitaly would react to that. Mm-hmm. The Sots Art started with this total denial of Russian underground art. Because for me, personally, socialist realism was very clear. And it was an idea of glorifying the leader and stuff like that, which is, it's okay, you know, I mean, it's not okay maybe, but it's understandable. But the people who made these paintings, spiritual paintings, were totally opaque for me. I didn't understand what it is about. And I totally denied it. That's why Sots Art was based on socialist realist images. It was a lot of irony, but still, it was much closer to me as a person. I mean, than the art on the left, let's say. Only later on, I got acquainted myself with the teaching of Blavatsky, understood what is this about, but I still totally deny the validity of this kind of underpinning of modern art, you know, because I think it's a total bullshit. The spirituality, this, you know, secret knowledge, you know, it makes it, you know, what I have to tell you, it's a very important thing, because modernism, modern art was actually a bulwark against modernity. So it was anti-modernist, because the modern world is based on technology, logic, all this stuff, which is totally foreign. So to stop it, Madame Blavatsky, Mondrian, Kandinsky, and all the T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, they all were, they would try to stop time. It was totally anti-modern movement, as well as, and modernism, got connected to communism, socialism, because the Soviet government accepted this, the modernists. Actually, they didn't have any choice but accepted, because nobody else wanted to join them. And what is yeah, and this but actually modern art was much closer to fascism than to communism, much closer. If you ever read Julius Evola, and if you didn't, please do. He was one of the major theoretician of Italian fascism, or some other people, who wrote about culture, because the whole idea of spiritual, unknown, as a German said, this, this mystical element, because the communists denied this mystical element, and fascism really lived on that, and really, but of course, even communists were not very good, because the major document of Marxism, the Communist Manifesto, starts with this ghost, walking around Europe, the ghost of communism, or whatever, specter it is translated in English. But so art is a very reactionary, let's say, anti-modernist movement. And that's what, but it has its role, in a society, especially with this art of, during the era of big leaders, like Stalin. Another thing I want to say, when I was young, art played much bigger role than it is now, because it was Stalin, Churchill, Roosevelt, Picasso, Dali. That was on equal level. That was, so that was big, 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 and they were totally equal. Of course, Gerhard Richter never will replace, never, no. It's, he is too weak for that. And that's what Sots Art was basically based on the ideas I just told you, not formulated at that time. It took me some time to understand it myself. But
okay. We should probably move on to, we've got quite a few questions here. Wonderful. Donna Gustafson writes that, or asks, if the artist should remove themselves from everyday life, then what should artists do? And I think she means in relation to their embeddedness in everyday life, because they can't really.
They should deny this life completely. My favorite guy was Simeon the Stylite. It's one of the saints, the early church. He went to the Syrian desert, and he was sitting on a stela, on a column for 36 years. So doing nothing. So do nothing. Art, do nothing. You don't need to produce this nonsense. Imagine now, millions of people around the world make art as we speak right now. China, Russia, you name it. Millions of people. And very few of these pieces they produced will see the light of day. Very few. So 99% of this production goes into garbage bins. So we're polluted by art. You don't know. It's a part of the world pollution, of the pollution of the world. Chemical pollution and spiritual pollution. Okay.
Wow.
We need to stop this insanity. It's ridiculous, guys. Stop it. Do nothing. Do nothing. Remove yourself from the world, get a small chair, not a column in Syrian desert, upstate. Right now, I wouldn't dare to sit there, but sit in the chair, okay, and do nothing.
Okay. Well, Donna, you have your answer. So we'll talk further. I'm going to return to Robert Horwitz in a moment, but first, because that's going to be maybe our last question. But Elvis Fuentes is asking, commenting, wonderful revelations, Lord. And he has a question. What is Anna Sorokina in this religion? Is she a priest, a prophet, a martyr? Did she convert to the religion of art?
Who's Anna Sorokina?
Anna Sorokina. I don't know. Anna Sorokina.
I don't know either. So
okay.
I hope she's a good lady.
She's good too. Okay, we'll look that up. Maybe we'll come back to that. Elvis, you could type in some more. Then there's Igor Mandel, who asks, do you see any difference between the spiritual roots of visual arts, which are almost undeniable, and other things, other media areas like literature or the music of this time? Is it all of a piece?
Oh, okay. You know, that's what, for that, you have to read again, I would recommend you to read an amazing article by Alex Ross. Alex Ross is a music critic for the New Yorker, and you can get it free online. And it's called The Occult Roots of Modernism. And he speaks about music, about Scriabin, of course, and some others, obviously, but he writes about, about the visual art as well. As we know, you know, T.S. Eliot was the member of the Theosophical Society, as I said already. Okay, and Ezra Pound as well. But Ezra Pound went some other social way. He was a fascist, okay? And some others were the communists. But, you know, being a fascist, we cannot deny his amazing and crucial role of Ezra Pound in the history of modernism. You know, he was the man, you know, of the era, and it went all the way. This belief there is some mystery. You know, there's, you know, it's like Freud. You know, that was a great Freud idea. You know, that there's a consciousness and unconsciousness. And I call this all modern literature as a stream of unconsciousness. You know, not stream of consciousness, but unconsciousness. That's what was cultivated in this. Mm-hmm. That was the, you know, the cult of unconsciousness. That's what modernism is.
And that, therefore, the danger. So now we have Alexander Zaitsev, who asks, should you consider an installation as a rival to the museum? What about total installations such as Ilya Kabakov's or Ilya Krzanovsky's Tao? Where do you see those?
I saw only one installation of Kabakov, and I cannot judge. But again, it's installations, and they were more depend on an institutional environment, you know, because installation is just garbage, you know, only within the institution, and they make sense. If they do make sense, I'm not sure they make sense, but it doesn't matter. And do nothing. What's his name? Zaitsev? Mr. Zaitsev, yeah. Do nothing, please. I beg you. And I'm your God, don't forget. It's my, you know, I'm giving you the order. Do nothing.
Okay, so we'll take that. Yes, very serious. Yeah, everybody is taking this. So Benjamin Farr is asking, saying, thank you so much for your presentation, your wonderful presentation. You said you take issue with art today. What are your issues with contemporary art? What direction do you think artists should head in?
Do nothing, you know. No direction, you know. They said it's a totally corrupt, institutionalized system. You know, you can, if I don't know what religion, whatever other than art you belong to, what denomination do you belong to? If you're Catholic, you know, of course, you know, Vatican, and I worked in the Vatican, and I painted this the priests and stuff like that for several years. And you can say that it brings something good into the world, but I doubt it. I think it has a negative impact. Art has a negative impact on our psyche, in our understanding of the world. You know, it just drags us back. You know, I mean, it just contempt. I mean, all this art which exists within the institution. It's an institution, okay? And it used to be an institution for crazy people, but now I remember, you know, in order to avoid the army, you know, in my time, people played cuckoo, you know, they say, oh, I'm crazy, I cannot go to the army. The same was during the Vietnam War, of course, here. But now, you know, everyone is playing an idiot. I'm playing a crazy man, you know, but it's all fake. It's all institutional system, you know, which drags you into certain things, you know, but every institution is wrong for art, maybe. But this institution has been created in the last, on my own watch, you know, for the last maybe 40 years. I mean, it existed before, of course, but it was not insignificant and small. Still, the artist was the hero. Now there's art fairs when not the artist invited, but the galleries invited. The museums are invited, not personalities, but the institutions.
Okay, Julia.
I have a question to kind of to follow up. But what about public art that exists on squares and integrated into the actual environment?
That's a true pollution. You know, I live in New York, you know, half of the time, you know, and I see this monstrous. I mean, why? What the hell is this? I mean, that's cute. That's nice. I said, what is nice about that? What is nice about it? There's this pretty. I said, what do you mean pretty? What does it mean pretty? Pretty for what? What's the purpose? What is this? I mean, it's a really street pollution. It's a really, I mean, and what is really amazing, because 1% of the population has this enormous amount of money. Money are coming in, you know, they pumped in the system, you know, not only to pay the artists, but non-for-profit that, and this huge monuments cast in bronze or whatever, you know, which cost fortune to produce. They now pollute our streets in New York, and not only in New York.
And I have also another quick question. So if we don't stop, you know, there is the trajectory that art kind of takes because there are many participants and there is certain common tendencies. So if we don't, if not everybody hears your word and wouldn't stop, what do you think the trajectory will be, how it will develop?
Our trajectory is like our political trajectory. It goes to the it goes to Trump. So that's what we have. You know? We cannot complain about this, because that's what leads to a spiritual. As Trump said, my gut feeling. You know, I feel it. I don't know, but I feel. I know that it's true. So how do you know that? Guts. Okay. Some say heart. On the left, they say, you know, it's very interesting. The left says, you know, it's like in 19th century parlance in Russia. So there was the idea, you know, whatever. I don't want to explain the political situation; it's too long. But they invented a great term, you know, dictatorship of the heart. Now, on the left, we have a dictatorship of the heart. On the left, on the right, we have gut feelings. That's more or less the same. One says heart, one says gut. Okay.
Okay. Well, connected to that, then, that speculation, Julia Arnold asks, do you feel the virus, speaking about the contemporary, do you feel the virus might rival you as a new government?
I am immune. I took all precautions.
But can't he create his own art? He's institutionalized too.
Yeah, but you know, it's interesting that Leo Tolstoy got this idea of infectious idea of art, you know, like we can say now, viral, I don't know, because he said that art, infects you, So that's another theory. It's a great book, actually. I have to read What is Art by Leo Tolstoy. One of those.
Yeah. Okay. So, Julia, do we have some more time? We have a few more questions.
I think so, yes, maybe a couple more.
Okay. So Adam Wilson writes, thank you for a very fascinating talk. I'm curious about how your idea of the resigned artist gels or contrasts with your idea of art being a cure for disease. How are those two connected?
Yeah, it is. The point is, I showed to you, I did mention that, I was totally wrong, my evolution, in a way. When I came to New York, it's like, this cure of art, really was amazing project. I loved it. Never been shown. I showed it once. Yeah, I made a clinic in Soho of curing art. It was kind of a total, absolute irony. Just show that art is a totally idiotic enterprise to begin with. But later on, I came to some other idea that art plays a very important role. It's not, I can say, just discard it, say, it's nonsense. It is nonsense. But it's a lot of nonsenses in our life, which really rules our life, which are really important in our life. So I'm trying to get into a solution, and I say, looking for the solution, I understood that I'm God. I'm the only one who can tell the truth. I am a truth holder. And please listen to that, because you will never hear it again from no one else. Okay? Listen to me and follow me.
Okay. Great. So let's see, we have a few more. I have one too, but I think I'm going to ask you that another time, Alex, because it's one of my obsessions. Actually, I want to just put it out there. I'm really curious about what you think about the whole Russian, in Russian literature and the visual arts and through the 19th century, and especially perhaps in your own time and period. I'm wondering what you think this role of Aesopov Yazyk plays in as a strategy visually, because you refer to irony a lot. And
it's very interesting, and it really shows about a lot about modern art, because one of the critics of in the New Yorker of movie critics, he was a big article by him, and he asked himself kind of in a rhetorical question. He said, why when the censorship existed, the code in Hollywood, why the movies were so good? I mean, what does it mean that censorship is good? If we accept the idea of modern art, it is, because you never say anything directly. What modern art is, it's a metaphor, something which stands for something else. See? So that I understand. That's why you need censorship, of course. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I hope that now art will proliferate, because we have an enormous censorship in art, which I never experienced before in this country. But
institutional.
Of course, no, censorship is institutional, of course. It's always institutional, and then maybe it's good for modern art. But again, why cannot you say it directly? No, it would be not artistic. Artistic goes like that, not like that. Okay. If you believe, but you need to be struck. You need to. You need to convert, guys, convert.
I think everyone agrees with you. A lot of people, even if they question it. So Elvis again says, I agree with the master. Ecologists say that humans are the only animal that create garbage, and they also create art. The worst of all.
Actual garbage, that's it.
Yeah, actual garbage. Of all of those are ecological artists who create art from garbage, double garbage. And Anna Sorokina, he says, is from the Netflix series. She was jailed for fraud, took hundreds of thousands of artists to create an art club in a church, on 218 Park Avenue. I haven't seen
I
this.
wish I met her before, you know.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to check out Netflix.
Okay.
Okay, and then maybe just two more. Carol Raza, are you equating art with religion and the evils, dangers that have come from religion? So therefore there should be none. Art is dangerous.
No, of course, that's what they said. Art is dangerous. Yeah, I mean, religion, you know, it's has some, I suppose, positive things, you know, but yeah, it's a lot of stuff, you know. I mean, that's you know, history of religion is really,
because religion is dangerous too.
I mean, with Inquisition and everything, it's the worst thing in the world. But on the other hand, you know, they said it's a because when I quoted Marx, of course, he said the religion at the side of the oppressed people. I changed the religion to art, you know, and exactly what it is. You know, I understand people who are totally lost. They're oppressed, you know, the heartless world around, and they ask for God, for something to save them from that, to give me something, you know, and they could believe in anything, you know, it doesn't really matter what it does. And that's, again, the Blavatsky idea of meditation, say whatever, yoga, you know, meditation, you know, and we'll look at the painting, you know, whatever, of you know, Jackson Pollock, and say, oh my God, look, this and that, oh my me, it's so amazing, you know. So, but we can look at anything and to think the same thing. We don't need paintings to be spiritual and religious, you know. We don't produce anything. But, you know, but of course, you know, because of this idea of the meditation, you know, which is a totally invented by Blavatsky and her followers, you look and, now look at this way, I can see everything, you know. And Claude Monet taught us how to see amazing lights, you know, I see this something pink here and green and blue or something yellow, mamma mia, why do you need anything to, I mean, why do you need a Jackson Pollock or de Kooning? Why?
You do know Van Gogh. So Sander De Haas asks, what did you teach the children about Van Gogh? What is the role of Van Gogh in the art religion? I mean,
for me in my childhood, I told you, whatever, not child, I mean, when I was a teenager and younger, you know, for us, for all, Cézanne was #1. And as you know, Mayakovsky said, Cézanne, наш Бог, Van Gogh, Cézanne. I don't know if everyone understands Russian, but in one season we believe in Van Gogh, our God is Van Gogh, the other season Cézanne. Okay, works even in English. Okay, so and because Van Gogh is always God, you know, God, blah, 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 and Cézanne is always season. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I'm not sure why Russians got totally crazy about Cézanne, but Van Gogh is more understandable because of his biography and his letters, of course, and he seemed to be an amazingly nice man, really. I mean, really sweet, nice, and amazing man. But does it make him God? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't.
So Jane Shaw then asks, and I think we're at the end here, what art, if any, heals?
What art is what, sorry?
What art? Does any art heal now that you're...
I mean, of course, you know, shamans said that they can heal, you know, any religion, you know, to prove the validity of religion, any religion. It's about healing, of course. It's like a miracles of Jesus, you know, but it's mostly even miracles of Jesus was a miraculous cure. So that's what it was about. And that's what, if you believe in art, it cures. If you believe in medicine, it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we're at the end, and so I will leave you with, and everybody with.
I showed you the seer stone. Oh my
Yes,
God.
the seer stone.
The
That
seer-
heals. That heals.
That's what it is. I can translate anything from the ancient Egyptians. That's what Joseph Smith said. Ancient Egyptians. If I hold it right.
So we'll end with Robert Horowitz, who then asks, "What is the meaning of life, O God?" As your last word.
Believe in me.
Okay. Okay. Well, Julia, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you, everybody, for such wonderful questions, thoughtful questions, and Alex, stunning, really series of thoughts. We haven't heard from you in so long. We're just delighted.
Thank you.
To hear your reflections.
And thank you. And I forgot at the beginning, you said thank you for the Zimmerli Museum, and Julia, of course, just amazing. Thank you for inviting me, because I didn't have a chance to talk for a long time.
I know.
Well, thank you very much, Alex, for giving this wonderful talk. It's very refreshing, I have to say. And well, I hope we will
Do it again.
do it again and organize something. And we are
I have a lot of ideas to share with you. Believe me.
Yes, absolutely. And we are hoping to do an exhibition of Komar and Melamid and maybe some other projects. So I would thank the audience and everyone who joined us today. And please stay tuned.